Howdy peeps, I'm Lance, host of Join the Journey Radio, and welcome to the world of Ted, where we discuss how single Latter-day Saints can learn, live, and love truly enjoyable dating. And yes, that is not an oxymoron. Dating doesn't have to be hard. In fact, if dating is hard for you, that's just an admission, that's just a sign that says you don't understand the fundamentals of what you're trying to do. Well, here in this video series, we're going to explore the fundamentals of dating. We're going to explore the principles that we can apply so that we can actually get joy from our dating experiences, whether or not they lead us to the end result that we want in the time frame that we want. There is much joy for us to be had all throughout our journey. And so that's what we're going to look at and explore here in this video series. Now, because this is the first video, I want to lay a few ground rules out. First of all, YouTube has a number of, they got their own community guidelines, let's call them. And so, there's some times where I'm just going to be using different language to represent different things, because otherwise I'm going to run into problems with the video on their platform. So keep that in mind as we go along. We also need to understand that my primary audience are single Latter-day Saints. So if you're not single and you're not a Latter-day Saint, this video series is not for you. It doesn't mean you can't watch it. It just means that I'm not talking to you when I'm making these videos. You're just not part of my audience. So we'll just get that straight. And when I say single Latter-day Saints, I'm not going to differentiate by age group. So we're not looking at the so-called young single adults who are in their 20s and only them. We're not just looking at the so-called mid-singles and only them. We're not looking at, the senior singles and their golden age. We're not separating out by age, and we're not separating out by gender either. This is not a men's channel. This is not a woman's channel. I mean, I built Join the Journey Radio so that singles of all ages and both genders can find more joy in their journey as single Latter-day Saints. And I think these boxes they get in the way of the joy that we could have. They obscure us from having that joy that we could have. So, I'm not going to differentiate here and really, I want to talk about principles, and principles that are true are going to be applicable across the board, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, regardless of whether you are in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, whatever your age is. It does not matter. True principles are eternal. They're always applicable. And so we're going to talk about those principles along the way. And we're going to talk about how we can apply those principles to have and experience truly enjoyable dating. Now, a lot of it has to do with the way that we think. The way that you think inside your head leads to the reality that you have in your life. So if you want a different reality, you need a different focus. You need a different way of thinking, because your focus determines your reality. The way you think determines the life you have. So what's going on the inside determines what's going on the outside. And that was a concept that was really hard for me to grasp. For a lot of years, I just couldn't understand it. And it wasn't until I did understand it that I finally started to have more of the joy that was mine to have all along as a single Latter-day Saint. So I want to help all of you out there to have that same joy in your lives. Because quite frankly, there are too many of us that are depressed, too many of us that are despairing, too many of us that are walking without hope, and this is not the place where joy comes from. So we got to get our thinking right, and we're going to talk about different ways of thinking as we go along. Now, to help us with our discussions, I'm going to be sharing with you videos, online articles, and basically content that helps to give us fodder for our discussions. And we're going to go through and we're going to talk about these content items. And we're going to show you, I'm going to show you in detail how the principles, what the principles are, and how they apply to specific situations. And hopefully, after watching these videos over and over through the whole string of videos that I'm aiming to create here, you'll change the way you think, and you can actually embrace and have in your life truly enjoyable dating. So with that, let's go ahead and get started here. First up, we have an article here from a site called Learn Religions. So let me get that started up here. And okay, here we go. All right, so here's a site called Learn Religions, and there's an article here about LDS dating and courtship. How to know who to marry. I mean, you gotta love this, right? I mean, right there, right now. I mean, that totally looks like clickbait. And I wouldn't be surprised if it is clickbait because I've actually read this article already. As we'll see a little later on, I have some questions about the author, which, okay, let's go ahead and just flip down here. So here we've got the author here, Rachel Brunner. I'm not sure how that's supposed to be pronounced, but here it says that Rachel is an LDS expert. What the holy Hebrew hey is that? LDS expert. I don't know. I don't know. But here it says that Rachel has an AS degree in computer information technology from LDS Business College. She was in Salt Lake, the hive nest of Mormondom. She must know all about those Latter-day Saint people, right? Well, I have some questions about this. And my questions actually started with what you see here in the description. Check this out. Rachel is a writer, energy healer, an active member of the Church of Latter-day Saints. I'm wondering if that's like an editorial oversight, like a really huge typo, or if you just don't know what you're talking about. And as we go through the article, I'm going to show you some other places where I'm kind of leaning toward the conclusion of you're not really a Latter-day Saint. You know what you know as somebody from the outside looking in. And admittedly, someone from the outside looking in has a probability of getting things right and a probability of getting things wrong. But, I'm looking at that and just thinking, I wonder. I have to wonder. I don't really know one way or the other, but we'll go along and I'll show you. I'll show you what I'm talking about as we go along. So here we go. She starts out introductory paragraph here. After following the basic LDS dating rules and guidelines. Okay, first of all, there are rules and guidelines? I wasn't aware of that. Were you aware of that? And where are these rules and guidelines written? Now, this is like a hypertext, so I guess if we wanted to, we could go look and see. But as we read the article, I'm just like, I kind of lost interest in even looking to see what those are, just because maybe we'll look at them. We might look at them in the next video. So I'm not convinced that Rachel is a Latter-day Saint. I'm not. I'll explain more as we go on. The time will come when you're ready to work towards temple marriage. How will you know who to marry? Prepare yourself through proper dating and courtship and learn how to build a strong relationship by dating for a sufficient time, becoming best friends, choosing the right person, building a foundation upon Jesus Christ. And, okay, so come on, man. I mean, already this is looking like clickbait. Because this just looks like, okay, come on, just give me the skinny. What's the deal? Where's the 411? So here's her first thing here where it says, check this out. It says courtship takes time. One of the most important aspects of the courtship process, unfortunately often lacking in LDS dating, is the very important need to spend ample time together. Now, I will agree with that assertion. There's too much rush to the end, and a lot of that is created by the way that Latter-day Saint culture is constructed. All cultures have markers of belonging so that people can easily identify who belongs and who doesn't, who's a member of the group and who's not a member of the group. In Latter-day Saint culture, the marker of belonging has traditionally been being married with kids. And this creates a problem for singles. See, I believe a great majority of the problems and the challenges that we have as Latter-day Saint singles comes from this marker of belonging in our culture that by definition excludes us. So we're trying to belong to a culture when the marker of belonging is something that we by definition do not have. Some of us singles are single parents, so got the kids part, but being single means you don't have a spouse. So by definition, you do not have the marker of belonging that is used to identify who belongs and who doesn't. And this is the major source of the challenges that we have, which is why I've been saying for years, we need to change the culture so that the marker of belonging is centered around Christ rather than being married with kids. Because if the center of our culture is around Jesus Christ, the marker of belonging becomes one of discipleship. Are you making and keeping all the sacred covenants that you can with your Savior? Are you trying to do your best to follow him? That becomes the marker of belonging. We're not quite there yet. And I've seen, over the last 2 or 3 years especially, there has been a shift, a move over in that direction, but we still got a ways to go. So I got to keep sharing the message. That's all there is to it. But yes, I agree with this. Courtship takes time. There are stages to the dating journey. And too many of us, we don't even think about the stage. We all intuitively know what they are, but we don't really think about them. And so, being cognizant of those stages and what's really required on a fundamental level to progress from one stage to the next, that's going to help you to have truly enjoyable dating. So let's see, what do we say here? Unfortunately lacking. Yeah, it is lacking. Although LDS dating online can be an opportunity to meet other singles, it is extremely important to date face-to-face for a long enough period of time. That's true. And the reason why that's true is because the most important assessment you can make of a potential partner is direction. What direction is this person headed in? And is that a direction that I want to go in? Ideally, the right person is really the right type. And by right type, I mean someone who's headed in the same direction you want to take your life. So you align the direction you want to go with the direction that your partner wants to go, and those are in the same direction, then it becomes synergistic and you can help each other progress toward perfection in that direction. It's where you don't have that alignment that you don't, because one partner's going to want to push you one way, you're going to want to go a different way, and you end up meeting somewhere conglomerated in the middle, which ends up to be mediocrity for the both of you. It's not a good match. So you want to look at direction and not position. And it takes time to assess direction. It takes time to assess direction. So, you don't want to rush yourself through the different stages. You want to take your time to see where is it that people are actually headed. A few brief dates followed by a whirlwind engagement in marriage does not build a solid foundation for marriage. Agreed. Such a sandy foundation will not hold firm when the storms of life come, and they always come. Very true. I mean, the person that you end up marrying is not going to be the person that you get on your wedding day. The person that you end up marrying is going to be the person that you're going to get 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So you want to keep the end in mind and actually begin. That's actually, what was it, Stephen Covey, who, by the way, was a Latter-day Saint. Stephen Covey, in his seminal book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Habit number 1, begin with the end in mind. So, begin with the end in mind. The end is not your wedding day. The end is what you're going to have, 10, 20, 30, however many years after you live the rest of your life with this person. That's the end. So where do you want to end up with? What direction do you need to head into to get to that end? And, finding somebody who's headed in that same direction and pairing up with that person, okay? All that takes time. That takes time. And so you really need to think about the end goal in mind. But too often, we don't think about it that way. We always think about it in terms of the present moment and where people are positioned right now. I don't care if you're in a bad position right now. Because if you're in a good direction, then the bad position will eventually become a good position. If you're in a good position right now, That's attractive in this moment, but if you're headed in a bad direction, then the good position will eventually become a bad position. So too often we assess based on position. How much money does the person have right now? How educated is the person right now? What's the person's career right now? How do they look right now? All these things that are about the moment, the present moment. It's about position. And that's where we screw everything up, because it's really about direction. Where's the person headed in? What improvements is this person making over time? And if this person is not making improvements over time, that is itself a direction that says this is where this person is going to head. So you really need to assess direction over position. We gotta speed through here. So here we got this next section about avoiding divorce. And of course, Rachel here talks about this whole thing with, then Elder Oaks. Classic. If you haven't read this, you really need to read it. General Conference Discourse from the April 2007 General Conference entitled Divorce. It says, the best way to avoid divorce from an unfaithful, abusive, or unsupportive spouse is to avoid marriage to such a person. If you wish to marry well, inquire well. And that's the main thing. Again, you've got to assess that direction. And too many of us are not inquiring well because we're not looking at direction. We're looking at position. So you need to change the way you think, and the reality you have then becomes something different. So don't let yourself get caught up in the moment by jumping into marriage when you're still in the stage of infatuation and attraction. Okay, first of all, the stage of infatuation and attraction. Right off the bat, I can tell you Rachel does not understand the fundamental stages of the dating journey. There is no stage of infatuation and attraction. There really isn't. And if you think there is, you're doing something wrong. Because here's what it implies. If there's a stage of attraction, that means, because there's not just one stage in the journey, right? There are multiple stages. So if there's one stage of attraction, then that implies there's no attraction in the other stages. And it doesn't have to be that way. If that's the way it is, you're going about it the wrong way. You can be continually attracted and enticed by your companion if you approach it the right way, by grounding yourself in the fundamentals of your journey. And if you don't understand those fundamentals, then of course you're going to end up just like Rachel here, thinking there's a stage of attraction. There's a stage of infatuation. Well, there is no stage of infatuation. Okay, infatuation is simply the result of biological hormones running through your body. That's not a stage. Okay, that's an event. So right off the bat, it's like you don't understand the fundamentals of what you're talking about here. Take the time necessary to allow your relationship and knowledge of the one you're dating to properly form a sure foundation. Well, I agree with that. Sure foundation takes time. A lot of it has to do with, that first stage of the journey, which is friendship. We talk so negatively about, putting people in the friend zone. And so we perhaps inadvertently with that language and the way of thinking behind that language, we relegate friendship to something negative. If you're somebody's friend, that's a negative thing. You have negative status with that person. Where in reality, I don't know. Maybe that's a crazy idea I got, just came to my head just now. Maybe friendship could be a positive thing. Friendship could be a positive thing? No flipping way! Yeah, friendship can be a positive thing. And that is the foundation for everything. And if you ask people who've been married for a long time, and they actually still like each other, they'll tell you that the friendship is the foundation. Now, of course, friendship is something that's going to be built over time, and it'll get stronger in the years as you work on it. But, there's nothing to say that you can't build a strong foundation of friendship in the dating journey that you have before marriage. And I say the dating journey before marriage because really marriage is the last stage of the dating journey. And because it's a stage of the journey, that itself implies that you should be dating your spouse long after you get married. You really should. It's all part of the journey. So, yeah. So here we go. Next step here, becoming best friends. Yeah, check this out. When you fall in love with someone, it's easy to believe that you are the best of friends and will always feel the way you do. But falling in love is a temporary emotion, one that eventually fades. It's important when courting that you take the time to develop a strong friendship with the one you're dating. Now, this theme keeps coming back up in Rachel's article, so I'm guessing that the guy you ended up marrying was somebody that you just kind of, got hot and heavy with the hormones, and you just didn't take the time to develop the friendship. Because this theme keeps coming back up in your article. Maybe, I don't know. And if so, I mean, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. I mean, there's lots of people who go around doing that, which, you find out through the school of hard knocks, too late. You shouldn't have done it that way. But, it is what it is. So yeah, it's important, Corey, take time to build a strong foundation with the one you're dating. Here's this good quote. Bruce C. Hafens compared relationships between men and women to a pyramid. Base of the pyramid is friendship. Descending layers include building blocks, understanding, respect, restraint. At the very top is what he terms a glittering little mystery called romance. One tries to stand the pyramid on its point. In other words, you're basing it entirely on romance, expecting romance to hold everything else up. The pyramid will fall. That's not a bad analogy. I kind of like that. So yeah, I go with that. Building a strong friendship happen over time as you learn how to communicate together, discuss life's important issues, and have a variety of experiences together. Again, going through the different stages of your dating journey. So as long as you're tending those fundamental principles, you will be building a friendship that could serve as the foundation for, a lifelong marriage. Here's our next section. I love this section right here, right? It says, choosing the right person. It's great. So this is what the whole clickbait title of the article was centered around, right? Choosing the right person. So here we go. Let's dive in. Here are some things to look for in a potential spouse. Do they love God and others, value marriage and family, respect you, respect themselves, have good mental and emotional health, maintain self-control, honor their parents, obey the commandments, fulfill church callings, including home visiting teaching. Okay, I got some things to say about this little list here. First of all, obey the commandments. Seriously, it's like the first item you got there is love God and love others. I mean, those are the two great commandments, and they basically encompass everything else. They really do. So in a way, it's kind of like you're kind of repeating yourself when you say obey the commandments, because if they love God and they love others, they're going to be doing all the other stuff too. Value marriage and family. That may seem to be, what's the word I'm looking for? That may seem to be obvious. I use obvious for lack of a better word. It's not really the word I'm looking for, but it'll work. It may seem to be obvious, but it really isn't, because there's a difference between the natural man and the natural woman, and the covenant man and the covenant woman. And we're going to talk about the differences between those two classes of people all throughout this, World of Ted video series. So stay tuned for more of that. But yeah, it's a very, very important distinction. Respect for you, respect for themselves, good mental and emotional health. Quite frankly, some people just don't have, the mental and emotional stability necessary for a relationship. I know, in fact, I know someone right now, she's completely single. She's available. She's got lots of things to recommend her, but she's also got a flaming case of anxiety as a mental illness. And, I've dealt with my mother. My mother has anxiety as a mental illness. So I know what that's like, living with that. And I can tell you that it's not a stable foundation for a good relationship. It's like, there's no way I'm pursuing this person because she's got this mental illness called anxiety, and I don't want to live with that. Now, you may say that's selfishness on my part. Okay. I'm not going to debate that with you. I'm just going to say the direction I want to take my life does not accommodate that type of partner, because that type of partner can't support me. That type of partner can't be a complement to me. And that's what I really want. I don't want someone who just fills in the blank. I want someone who complements me and can grow with me. And I have enough experience, dealing with a loved one who has anxiety as a mental illness to know that's just not my show. That's not my show. And you're really looking for a very rare type of individual for whom that is the show. So again, you got to make your own decisions and choices about what these things are. But I'm right in line with what Rachel's saying here. Have good mental and emotional health, because you're really just tripping over your own self and getting in your own way. Now, does that mean that these types of people can't have, healthy romantic relationships? No. They just need to find the right type of person who has the strength and the capacity and the skills to deal with that. That's not me. That's just not me. I'm constituted differently. So away we go. Now okay. Here's one of the things that I was saying earlier about, I'm wondering if Rachel's really a Latter-day Saint. The article, remember the date on the article, 2019. So here she's talking about including home and visiting teaching. I'm sorry. If you're a true Latter-day Saint and someone who's actively trying to be part of the community, then you would know that back in 2018, a year before you wrote the article, in that April General Conference, we had that whole thing about the ministering initiative, and how home and visiting teaching are now a thing of the past. And so ministering is the thing now. So the fact that you're using this archaic language and referencing this program that doesn't exist anymore, yeah, that kind of clues like, what? Really? The Church of Latter-day Saints. Here we start getting evidence added up again that makes me wonder, is Rachel really a Latter-day Saint? I don't know. Again, it's not definitive proof, but it raises the question. Here's a great quote from Hinckley. I love Hinckley. I'm a total Hinckley fan. So, give me a quote from Hinckley. I'm happy. Choose a companion you can always honor, you can always respect, one who will complement you in your own life, one to whom you can give your entire heart, your entire love, your entire allegiance, your entire loyalty. Marry the right type. Marry someone who's headed in the same direction you're going, so you can align that up and you can give your whole self to that person because you're headed in the same direction that you want to go in and take your life. It's a pretty simple concept. Too few of us don't even pay attention to it. Here we go. Seeking the perfect person. Although it is extremely important to date those who have high standards and to observe a potential spouse's behavior, it's also important to remember that no one is perfect. Elder Richard G. Scott warns against focusing too heavily on seeking a perfect companion. This is a classic quote from Elder Scott. Check this out. I suggest you not ignore many possible candidates who are still developing these attributes, seeking the one who is perfected in them. You will likely not find that perfect person, and if you did, there would certainly be no interest in you. These attributes are best polished together as husband and wife. Amen and amen. We're all imperfect people. And again, that search for perfection is a focus on position rather than direction. So you want to focus on direction. What direction can you get out of this? And again, not ignore many possible candidates who are still developing these attributes. Too often, we are our own worst enemies because we close ourselves off from possibilities. We look at people and we say, oh, not that person, and not that person, and good God in heaven, not that thing. We make preliminary judgments about people before we even get to know them. We don't even know who they really are on the inside. We don't know what it is they bring to the table, or what they could bring to the table if we'd only give them an opportunity to do so. And so too many of us are way too restrictive. We take these standards of what we want in an companion, the type of person we want to marry, and we apply it to the very beginning of the process. And, that first stage of the journey, which is friendship. And then the next stage of the journey is casual dating. So we ask ourselves, who am I going to invite for a casual date? Who am I going to accept a casual dating invitation from? And very often, we don't allow possibilities to enter into our decision making. So we close ourselves off from potential candidates who, for all we know, could actually be the type of companion that we're actually looking for, but we don't think that that person is, because they don't have the outward appearance, or they don't have the money or the career, or there's something about them that just right off the bat says, no, we're just not even going to consider it. Now, there are some things that are substantive, like the example I gave earlier about mental health. As soon as I find out that the woman has flaming anxiety, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters, because see, anxiety is not something that you overcome. It's not an illness that you can cure. It's a condition. It's a condition that you have to adjust and live with. And so, something that with that type of permanency to it, I'm going to say, yeah, you actually could use that as a filter up front. But very few things that we're using as filters are actually of that category. Many of the things that we use as filters are just temporary things that talk about positions. So, again, we need to get our heads straight. Get our heads straight and try to figure this stuff out a little bit more. Instead of seeking the perfect person, we should try to become the perfect person ourselves, while at the same time allowing and having tolerance for imperfection in others. But again, that doesn't mean that we accept mediocrity in our lives. Accepting imperfections in others means, yeah, you accept that they're imperfect today, but at the same time, you insist on a commitment to perfection as you grow together in your relationship. And, again, that comes from assessing the direction you want to head in. So, gotta get our heads right. Okay? Here we go. Working towards a temple marriage. Dating and courtship is the time to continue to prepare for a temple marriage. What did that sentence actually add? Seriously, it's like, duh. I mean, I'd say about a fourth of the information we've seen here is like duh information. Being sealed to a spouse's temple is the greatest covenant one can make with God and can only be achieved as a companionship. The way that's worded is just a little off, but check out this next part. The wording here really gets me going. A temple wedding seals a husband and wife together for all time and eternity. All time and eternity? No. The phrase is for time and all eternity. And those of us who are active Latter-day Saints know that language. We know the order of the words. And so, I'm sorry. Again, here's another piece of evidence. Exhibit C, if you will, in the case that's looking to question, is Rachel really a Latter-day Saint? I don't know. I mean, a true Latter-day Saint who's active in the community, I'm in all eternity, but not, here it says, all time and eternity. I mean, that's just awkward. That's awkward to a Latter-day Saint. Saying it that word is awkward to a Latter-day Saint. I don't know. Meaning they will be together again after this life and is necessary for exaltation. This is the whole section of working towards a temple marriage. This added absolutely nothing to the article. It is entirely filler material. I'm sorry. I mean, the internet editor in me is just like, I want to take out my red pen and just... All right. Oh, here's a good one. Keeping the law of chastity, which, okay, we all know about this. And, again, this is more filler material. You can read through this if you want. I'm not going to read through it because this is old hat. This is stuff that we all know, or at least we all should know. If you don't know about this stuff, then yes, definitely read it. I don't really have a problem with what she's saying here, except that it doesn't really belong in the article so much because, again, this is just filler material. You don't need a whole section that talks about keeping the law of chastity. You don't. You can get it in just one sentence. Oh, you want to get where you want to go? If you want a temple marriage that's going to last forever, keep the law of chastity. Pretty simple. Don't need a whole section on it. Which, of course, is a whole astounding 2 overwhelming paragraphs. Which, of course, they're not that overwhelming, as you can see here. Here's this next section. Relationship founded upon Jesus Christ. This is an interesting section. Check this out. If you want to have a happy, healthy marriage, it's necessary to build a proper foundation upon the teachings of Jesus Christ. Some excellent ways to do this are to do the following together. Now look at this list that she has here. I find it interesting that family home evening is at the top of the list. I don't know if she's like intending any special order for this, but seriously, I just, I don't know. It's like family home evenings, the first thing on the list. I would think looking down here, saying it's just got prayer, which comes in at number 5. To me, that should be number 1. I mean, really, that should be number 1. So, all these other things are really good. I think prayer should be number 1 on the list. Family home evening just kind of comes down later. And really, you don't even want to be having family home evening together. Like having your own little family home evening together until you get to the engagement stage of the dating journey. You might entertain it in the exclusive dating stage. You might, but I can see that kind of as a transition. You might do it, you might not. I don't know. But definitely prayer. Okay, prayer is something you want to be including all the way throughout. You want to be praying together as friends. You want to be praying together as casual daters. You want to be praying together as exclusive daters. You want to be praying together as a couple that's engaged. And you definitely want to be praying together when you're married. So, I would put prayer at the top of the list. And I would put family home evening a little bit lower. But, again, I don't know, again, I got questions about whether or not Rachel's really a Latter-day Saint, so I don't really know. Maybe she is. And I'm just, but I get these little clues all throughout that make me wonder. It makes me wonder. Having continuous spiritual experiences together will help build a relationship founded upon Jesus Christ and his teachings. I can agree with that. Although, I don't think you really need to have the experiences together to have a foundation on the Savior. I don't think that's absolutely necessary. But, okay, yeah, if you have them together, great. Here we go. Last section of the article. Making a decision to marry. Time will come when you'll want to know if the person you're dating is the one you should marry. The Lord taught Oliver Cowdery how to know the truth. And, of course, we got the classic quotation here from D&C 9. And here's your interpretation of it. I kind of agree with this. Check this out. This means you must first go through the dating courtship process, learn for yourself if the one you're dating is right for you. Then you must make a decision and pray about it, and the Lord will answer you. See 10 ways to prepare for personal revelation. I agree with this in the general concept. This idea that you get your own experience, and then you're going to go and take that experience and make your own decision. Then after you make your own decision, then you go to the Lord and present that decision to the Lord and partner with him, counsel with him to learn, the truth about your decision. Is your decision a good decision? Is your decision a poor decision? Is your decision one that's like, well, Lord, because the Lord could answer you and say, well, it could go either way. Don't really know. And you're not going to know until you go through this process. So, yeah, as a general rule, I agree with this. And this is the end of the article. So overall, I have to say, I'm wondering if Rachel's a Latter-day Saint. And like half the article seems to be filled with filler material. Didn't really offer a whole lot. So, yeah. But, again, it gave us a good opportunity to discuss some of the principles of truly enjoyable dating. And so, there you go. So that's all the time we have for this episode of The World of Ted. Please comment down below. Keep the conversation going. Come back next time for another wonderful episode where we explore how to embrace truly enjoyable dating. See you then.